Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for attending. Before we start, just a few housekeeping announcements. So let's make sure that everyone's mic is muted throughout the presentation. If you have questions, feel free to send them into the chat. We will also be answering questions at the end. Also, just a reminder that this presentation is recorded. So for anyone who is new to the Nigerian Center, we are a nonprofit organization. We focus on uplifting and giving resources to the Nigerian diaspora here in the US. We aim to accomplish this in a variety of ways. We offer immigration, legal services, homeownership services, entrepreneurship, and small business resources, as well as language classes. We also host cultural events centered around the Nigerian culture. While we are called the Nigerian Center, our principal goal is to help uplift all immigrant communities here in the US. So now moving towards today's event, today's speaker, who has courteously volunteered her time, is Miss April Holloway, who's an immigration law expert, here today to speak to us about family-based immigration. But before we hear from Ms. Holloway, we will have a brief word from our CEO and founder, Mr. Benga Ogunjimi. Benga, the podium's all yours.
Thank you very much, Tyler. Welcome everyone once again. If you can please chat in the chat box where you're joining us from, so we can shout out those we have here today. Can we just use the chat box to see where we all are participating from? I mean the city in which you're joining us from. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So everyone, once again, welcome to the Immigration Rights Workshops. Today's theme is on family-based immigration. And what I want to do is to talk a little bit about Nigerian Center for those who might be joining the organization for the very first time. We are still a very young, growing, emerging organization. So I want to use this opportunity to just kind of talk about the why we do what we do, opportunities for you to be a part of what we do. I also want to give a little bit of context why this particular program is important. So the Nigerian Center is a response to providing financial inclusion for members of the Nigerian American community in the United States. And the reason I started this organization, I started it because across the country and around the world, immigrant community centers have been a tried and true, proven, tested model for community development. And we see in many communities and many cultures, whether that be the Latino cultures, the Jewish cultures, the Caribbean cultures, the European cultures in America, how they all have a community organization that really helped to make their transition and acceleration in the American experience more palatable. Just to give you some comparison in terms of numbers, when we look to what our Jewish community, the very first Jewish community organization was incorporated in 1854. So one begins to wonder if that is a corollary to disparity if we compare our community to other communities in terms of financial inclusion, in terms of representation within corporate America, in terms of wealth disparity, even political representation. And we see the same model in other communities across the country. Not until recently, we just had our own Nigerian Immigrant and Cultural Center. And we identify 4 major areas of asset building for our programs. The very first one being immigration. Second is homeownership, access to capital, and language classes. Immigration is critical because we know without immigration, we cannot even begin the conversation of financial inclusion. So if you think about it, without immigration, justice or opportunities, and an immigrant in the United States pretty much exists within the shadows. They cannot get work authorization to work to provide for their family. They cannot competitive to get into the school system. In some cases, should they be awarded a scholarship, they might not be able to receive it or even qualify for tuition. They cannot get employment. Even when they manage to save up down payment to buy a house of their own, in some cases, they are not able to do so. And we cannot even start to talk about running for public office. So immigration is very important, it's critical. And that is why we have started our programming with immigration. And every single month, we've been having this immigration series. And we're so thrilled today that our speaker, Ms. April, has donated our expertise to help support the center. So we really appreciate it for that. Before we proceed in today's presentation, I want to use this opportunity to talk about our sponsor for today's event called TapTapSend, a fintech that provides mobile payment transfer from United States around the world, but particularly Nigeria. And I want to really highlight why this sponsor is very important to us. And I often say that when it comes to change making, there are two dominant categories of people. There are those who see change happen and they spectate and they investigate and they contemplate if they want to be a part of it. And the other category just jump right into it. And what they are looking for is mission alignment. What they're looking for is values alignment. And we're so thrilled and thankful for the contribution and support of TapTapSend, who was committed to sponsor this series all through the end of 2022 and potentially beyond. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Olayinka to tell us more about the organization and why is this collaboration important to them. After which I'll come back and talk about ways to get involved in the center's work, and I'll turn it over to our speaker today. Olayinka, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Benga, and good evening, everyone. Like Benga said, my name is Olayinka Sarai, and I'm the marketing manager for TapTapSend. First, I'd like to thank Benga and the whole team at the Nigerian Center for having this event and letting us be a part of this event. I think that it's a great job that you guys are doing, providing migrants across the US with much needed access to information amongst the many other programs that you guys already offer. I think it's great. So I'm so excited to be here. Real quick, I'm not going to take up much of your time. I'm just going to tell you about our app. So the name of the app is TapTapSend. We're a digital money transfer app that allows migrants to send money back to loved ones through the app. Now, specifically for this, I'm specifically working with the US Nigeria market. However, TapTapSend does service countries across Africa, Asia, as well as some Caribbean islands like Haiti. I think you can switch to the next. Yes. So basically, this is how the app works. You download the app, and sign up with your information. The senders put in their information as well as the receiver's information and payout country, selecting the amount of money that they wish to send, and then you click confirm. So basically, it's very, very simple, and in 4 steps, literally, or 3 steps, like TapTapSend. The money goes directly from the sender's account to the receiver in the next country. So our offer to the Nigerian market is simple. It's compared to the other competitors that we have out there. We offer a flat rate fee of $3 for up to $2,000 that's being sent. We also allow senders to send in either US dollars or Naira. Like I said, guys, if you're not sending to Nigeria, like there are options to send to other countries. However, I know more about my corridor being Nigerian corridor, but if you have any questions about any other country that we send to, please do drop it in the chat and I'll be happy to get that information for you. So TapTapSend, why Nigerians are using TapTapSend is that we're easy, we're convenient, and we're secure. No more lining up at the bank or just sending your money to somebody that you might not be sure who it is, to send it over to your loved ones. You can do everything straight from the phone. We have great rates and low fixed fees depending on the payout methods. Receivers can receive the funds through their bank deposit or a cash pickup, and there are no daily limits. So being that we're partnered with the Nigerian Center, when you do download and use the app, for the first transfer, if you use that code, the Nigerian Center DC, you'd receive a free $10 with your first transfer. Yes. Oh no, wait, go back. Go back. Or actually the next slide after that should be. Next one. And the next, I think it's the last one. Let that take it out. Sorry, Benga. Oh man, okay. So we can just go before this one. So real quick, I feel like that's like the before this, Benga, sorry. Before all this good stuff. This is fine. I just wanted to tell you that more about TapTapSend. So I feel like that's all the financial and how do I say it? That's the boring stuff I like to say. The real difference and the real fun part about TapTapSend, I feel like, is how TapTapSend is a socially impact-driven company. So basically, what that means is that everything that we do, we have a bigger mission than just helping people send money. TapTapSend is the only money transfer company that's aligned with the United Nations sustainable goal of reducing inequality by reducing the cost of remittances by 2030. And this is evident in our pricing. Right now, in most emerging markets, it costs about 5%. Like the sending fee is above 5%. And this covers transaction costs, bank costs, and whatnot. And basically what we're trying to do in TapTapSend is that we're trying to get these costs lower, and we're trying to reduce these costs, and we're the only ones that are aligned with this mission. Also, TapTapSend is very community driven, and that's why we're happy to partner with organizations such as the Nigerian Center, because we believe in working with organizations that are trying to drive change and bring impact to our target audience, which in this case is Nigerians. And that's why we're happy to partner with organizations like the Nigerian Center. Lastly, back to here, if there's one thing we know about Nigerians, is that Nigerians are very hard workers. So, and if you're Nigerian, there's a saying that says, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So we want to give some lucky Nigerian fans a chance to see the Super Falcons play the US women in an upcoming game. So in order to enter for a chance to win these tickets, here's how you would go about doing that. You'd first download the TapTapSend app, create your account, and using the promo code Nigerian Center DC, you would send any amount to any Nigerian account. Once you've done so, you screenshot a picture of that successful transaction to that email. I'm pretty sure Benga and his team would share this information out afterwards. And by doing so, you've entered into the draw to win a ticket to see the team. And the winners will be selected and announced on Friday. But once you've done that, then you'd go to the Nigerian Center social media page and you tag a friend that you think would also like to join you at the game for them to do the same. And like I said, winners will be selected on Friday, September 2nd.
Awesome.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alinka. I want to invite Mr. OJ to please come as well to the microphone. You represent the Nigerian Supporters Club, and just kind of speak to the significance of this particular match and why we should all be there. Mr. OJ, the floor is yours.
It's good evening. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for inviting me. I should say the two bangers. Thank you. We partnered with the Nigerian Center, again, a great social and community impact organization serving the Nigerian market. We have a game here coming up, the Super Falcons of Nigeria. It's a doubleheader, Saturday, September 3rd in Kansas, and then September 6th in Washington, DC. We intend to have a rather festive atmosphere, emphasizing what it means to be in a Nigerian football atmosphere. The Nigerian Center has been promoting the game. They have been front and center in the promotions of the game, and We appreciate and are thankful for their efforts. And we hope members of the audience will be attending the game. We definitely have at least 300 of us coming for a particular section, and there's going to be more people all over parts of the stadium. And again, thank you. And thank you for Send for joining this Nigerian Center as a sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. OJ. So real quick, I want to go through my next presentation before the speaker comes on. And thank you so much for your patience. We've been having the recording of all our previous webinars, workshops for the immigration series. So if you would go to the media page, you can access all the previous recording, including this particular recording as well. We are always asking and receiving opportunities for volunteering. As I mentioned, the Nigerian Center staff, including our speaker, particularly our today's speaker as well. It's a volunteer-led, driven organization. So we definitely invite you to be a part of the work that we do. And the website to do so is nigeriancenter.org/serve. We recently started our community partners community, and this is an opportunity for community leaders that's drawn from various community, whether it be business, faith, nonprofit, tech, business, to let us know how well we can better serve the community. At these events, we do listening sessions and just kind of listening to how we can shape our program and how we can better serve and reach our community. If you're not yet following us on social media, please do so. You can follow us at Nigerian Center on Facebook and Instagram, and we are just Nigerian Center on Twitter. We have an active promotion for the match. You can tag your friends, but importantly, we just want to activate an online community as well. So please feel free to follow us on social media. Concerning donation opportunities, I just want to say I'm so thankful and honored for the embrace and the support that members of our community have given to the Nigerian Center. This would not have been possible without your generosity and support. And I just want to thank everyone for helping us break the narrative and the stereotype that our communities don't support each other. We are living proof that that is not true. So thank you so much. If you want to be a part of our donor community, please go to our donation page. You should receive the link. I particularly ask that you consider being a recurring donor. We are 501c3, so our donation are tax exempted. But highly consider us. We invite you to be a part of our community. We know that you support a lot of organizations, but we also ask that you consider adding Nigerian Center to the list of the organizations that you support. I particularly want to talk about our immigration walk-in clinic. October 1, we are opening the very first immigration clinic for the Nigerian American community in Washington, D.C. And folks can actually walk in and get legal services absolutely for free. The funding for this is coming from the government in Washington, D.C. So obviously our target audience for the grant that we received is for Washingtonians, and those in the Washington, D.C., those who are residents here. With your financial support, we will be able to open that program to not just members of Washington, D.C., but to members of the community across the country. So I really want to ask that today, if you would consider whether it is $5 or more or $1, that you would go to nigeriancenter.org/donate to please give to the organizations. And I really don't want you to think, how can my donation count? It definitely is going to count. And it's particularly going to help bring this program to life. So right now we can have a center and a resource within the center for everyone to get legal services absolutely for free. And we ask that you please consider donating to this. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. April. Ms. April, thank you so much once again for volunteering your time, your expertise to educate us and empower us today. I want to start by saying that we are officially extending to you an invitation to be a member an already member of the Nigerian American community. So we welcome you to our community with open hands. So thank you so much. We'll turn it over to you, and I'll stop sharing my screen so you can share yours as well.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for being here. So my name obviously is April Holloway. I've been working in immigration for the past 6 years, but I've been an attorney for 12 years. And my specialty for the past 6 years is immigration. And I started off by working on the border of Mexico and Texas, volunteering with people who had just, I hit the wrong button, sorry about that, just arrived in the United States and were being detained. So that gave me a huge passion to continue working for the immigrant population, being able to see exactly with my own eyes how customs and border agents treat immigrants who are coming to the United States. It's very offensive. And I would like to do everything that I can to assist people with their immigration issues. So with that said, let's get started with talking about family-based immigration in particular. So family-based immigration means that you have a family member who is petitioning for you to be able to obtain residency in the United States. Oftentimes people talk about it in terms of becoming a citizen, but before you're a citizen, you're a resident if you're an immigrant. So this is a petition to become a resident. The petition is only the first step of that process, and we'll talk about the other steps later on. But first, let's start with the I-130 petition, which is also called Petition for Alien Relative, and who is eligible to file a petition for their relative. By the way, I will be looking at the chat off and on. So if you want to send a question in that chat, let me move this off here. Yep. If you want to send a question in the chat, then just go ahead and do so at any time. I'll peek down there off and on to answer your questions, okay? So if you are currently a lawful permanent resident, you can file a petition for your spouse or an unmarried child of any age. Now, if they're 21 and under or over 21, that will put them in different categories that we'll discuss later on. But the main thing is that they stay unmarried. Getting married during this process means that you would no longer be eligible if the person petitioning you is a lawful permanent resident. If you are a United States citizen, you can file a petition for your spouse, your unmarried or married child, your sibling, or your parent. There's one additional benefit to being a US citizen, which is that you can file a petition for a fiance. You don't use the same form. It's not the I-130 petition for alien relative. It's the 129F petition for a fiance. Okay, so that's a lot of information at one time. So let's just go ahead and work on some examples. Here's the first one. All right, so here's the first example. Kunle is a lawful permanent resident, and he files a petition for his 18-year-old son, Jide. Before the petition is approved, his son gets married. Will this petition be approved or denied? Who wants to make a guess? Anybody? No takers? All right. Unfortunately, this petition is going to be denied because remember, the important thing for a lawful permanent resident is that the child has to stay unmarried, okay? All right, here's another one. Dooney, who's a lawful permanent resident as well, files a petition for her 29-year-old daughter, Simi. The petition is approved and Simi completes the consular interview. However, just before flying to the United States, she gets married. What will happen when she reports this to the border agent? If you don't know, once you come into the US for the first time on a residency visa, you do get questioned by the consulate. They do compare your application at the consular stage to the information that you provide to them when you enter the US. That visa only gives you permission to approach the border and request permission to enter. After that, the agent at the border actually makes the decision whether or not to allow you in. So what's going to happen to Simi when she reports that she got married before she flew to the United States? Now, let's see here. It's not giving me, sorry, y'all, I'm having some technical difficulties because usually the chat button is right down there, but for some reason I can't get to chat to see if somebody is sending me an answer. Oh, there it is. But no takers, all right. And now I've gone too far. Let me go back. There we go. All right, so unfortunately, what's going to happen in this case is that Dooney's visa is going to be canceled or revoked, because until she receives that green card in her hand, she does have to stay unmarried for the visa to be available. At this point, the officer will have a choice to say, you're going to be sent back to Nigeria on the next plane we have available, or we're going to detain you and put you in removal proceedings, or we're going to put you in removal proceedings and allow you to enter the US on the condition that you show up for immigration court. So until that card is in your hand, do not change your marital status if your petitioner was a lawful permanent resident. And here's the last one. Tungi, a US citizen, filed a petition for her sister Chioma. Chioma and Tungi share a father, but not a mother. Will this petition be approved or denied? I'll go ahead and give you the answer. It'll be approved. Barring any other issues, it'll be approved. It is okay to petition for a half sibling. All right, so those were the easy examples. Now we're going to do some complicated examples. Anybody watch 90 Day Fiancé? So I pulled these names, Michael and Angela from 90 Day Fiancé, if you are aware of this famous couple. So Michael arrived to the United States 2 years ago, leaving behind his two sons, 7-year-old Corey and 18-year-old Benga. Benga, I put you in there. A year later, he marries Angela, a US citizen. Can Angela file a petition for Corey? Can Angela file a petition for Benga? So the question is essentially, can Angela petition for her stepsons? The rule that goes with this is a step parent can petition for a stepchild so long as the marriage occurred before the child turned 18 years old. So with that rule in mind, Angela, yes, can file a petition for Corey because Corey was 7 years old when Michael left. He married Angela a year later, so he's approximately 8 years old at this time. The problem is Benga. Benga's 18 years old when he left, and he married Angela a year later. So unfortunately, he's most likely 19 when the marriage occurred. And that would mean that Angela cannot file a petition for Benga. Does that mean that Benga's out on the cold and there's nothing that can be done for him? No, it just means that Benga's gonna have to wait until his father, Michael, becomes a resident, and then his father can petition directly for him. So in this situation, instead of Angela being able to petition for her spouse and two stepchildren at the same time, she's only gonna be able to file a petition for her spouse and one stepchild. Now let's make it even more complicated. 3 years after this marriage, Angela and Michael divorce. And Michael decides to remarry a woman from his hometown in Nigeria, Ije. Now that he is an LPR, a resident, can he file a petition for his new wife? Will it be approved? This is a scenario that we actually see happen a lot. There's a failed marriage that occurs. with a US citizen or a US resident, and then the immigrant marries someone from their home country. Can they petition for the person from their home country? Absolutely, they can. Will it be approved? That depends. They're going to have to establish two different things. They have to establish that the original marriage was a bona fide marriage, meaning that the original marriage was made for love and not for the purpose of immigration. And they're going to have to establish that the new marriage is also a marriage that is for true love, not for immigration purposes. They're not being paid for it. In some cases, they also have to establish the timeline of dating this new person to ensure that there wasn't a clear relationship occurring with the person from the home country prior to the person arriving in the US under a scheme planned to bring the original intended wife or husband to the United States. How do you prove that? Proving a bona fide relationship generally, actually we'll get into that a little bit later. I have another slide on that. But one of the largest factors that I do want to talk about right now in proving that the relationship was valid is if you can have the divorced spouse either testify in person or write a letter agreeing that it was a valid marriage. I've done this before where the spouse agreed to come in person to the interview for the new couple and explain that the divorce occurred because of a set of unfortunate consequences. They were separated early on in their marriage because of an injury to one of their parents. The one spouse went to go and be a caretaker for the parent, and the stress of that, in addition to being separated as a newly married couple, just led to divorce. And she explained that that's what happened. The interviewing officer understood and granted the application for the new spouse. All right, so to go more into how to prove that it's a bona fide relationship, the first thing you need is a legal document of the relationship. In some countries, it's not as common to have a birth certificate or a marriage certificate made. Unfortunately, for US immigration, they do need to see a legal document. If there's any irregularities in the document, then you should go ahead and submit an explanation for that. So if it's a late registered birth certificate, go ahead and submit an explanation of why it was late registered so you don't worry about delays in your process or delays on your approval. For spousal relationships, they rely very heavily on financial entanglement of the spouses if you're both in the United States. If you're not both in the United States, it's not as important. For siblings and for parent-child relationship, they do want to see that you have involvement in each other's lives and it's not just a legal relationship. The reason for this, especially with parents and children, is they have a bias against a parent receiving a benefit from a child if that parent has not been a part of that child's life. Other documents that prove relationship, marriage, medical, school records, correspondence, informal and informal, so your WhatsApp chat messages, for example, religious or church records, baptism records, census records, and for some extreme circumstances, DNA might be requested. When you're doing photographs showing relationship, particularly for couples, it has to be said, we don't want to see any pictures of you in bed together. I am tired of seeing pictures of couples in bed together. That's not what we mean when we ask for photographs. We want to see you standing in front of a museum, out to eat with each other, at family celebrations. We do not need evidence of consummation. Also, I'll take you there just really quickly. Oh, and there were a few questions. Let me answer these first. Can she be engaged? Absolutely. So if you are a lawful permanent resident petitioning for a child, that your child can be engaged, just not legally married. And also be very careful of what engaged is in your country versus in the United States. We've had an issue where if a bride price has already been paid. There are some officers in the American consulate in Nigeria who will consider that marriage. And they will say, well, you're married, so it's you can't go on this benefit for a lawful permanent resident. So the engagement can exist, but just be careful that what actions have been done for the engagement would not constitute marriage. Yes, but not for the 18-year-old. Yes, you were right. All right. So here is a little guide that I wrote that has unconventional evidence of a bona fide relationship. If you're not able to get the same kind of financial entanglements they're looking for, you don't have joint property, you can't have a bank account together, it can be really hard to show financial entanglement. And so what we have here is just some other options. So the first one is free or joint memberships. So companies like Safeway, CVS, Shoppers, Costco, even some museums, community centers, community pools, YMCA, they allow you to have a family membership, a joint membership. So if you get that and you can show the application or the card that has all of your names on it, that's also helpful. Another really helpful thing is to attend premarital counseling. You can either do this free if you're religious and they have it offered through your religious organization, or you can do counseling sessions with a secular counselor and show that you attend those sessions together, whether it's in person or on Zoom. That shows the seriousness of your relationship. The next option is also showing your communication. And it's not just communication that says, I love you, I miss you, I can't wait to be with you, you're so beautiful, I love your hair. It needs to be substantial communication, not just emojis going back and forth. So if you're able to show communication where you're talking about where are we going to live, what are our finances going to be, are we going to have children? If you already have children, talk about how you parent the children, what kind of agreements that you're going to come to on parenting, what difference you have. You want to show communication that is real, not just on the superficial level of how hot your body is. Also, you want to show communication that goes across different platforms. So I know that we usually find our favorite platform to talk on, and that's what we stick with. But if you're talking across with each other on Instagram and Messenger, and you're sending emails, and you're using WhatsApp, and you can show all of that cross communication with each other, that's what they want to see on there. And the next one is to be a cohort of 2. So there are a lot of online programs that have cropped up, especially over the past 2 years, where you can take a course for free doing any number of things, information technology, a language course, really anything you could find. If you all commit to doing a class together and you get your certificate showing that you completed that class, and you can submit that as evidence of, you know, not only are we in love with each other, but we're growing together and building together and we share interests together, that also helps show that you are in a serious bona fide relationship. And the last one is a plug for myself to hire a creative attorney, because sometimes you need somebody to talk you through what are your daily activities in order to help come up with what is going to be your special and significant evidence to prove that this is a bona fide relationship. All right. Now we're going on to what happens after the family petition is approved. So if you are in a immediate relative relationship, your I-130 approval is an immediate visa. It is immediately available for you to move on to the next step of becoming a resident. So the people who are immediate relatives are the spouse of a US citizen, the unmarried child of a US citizen under 21, or the parent of a US citizen. So that person has the I-130 approval and they can immediately move on to the next step. Everyone else falls into a preference category and has some visa wait time. The visa wait time is based on Congress allocation of visas for different categories. And also based on your country of nationality. So these are the September 2022 visa bulletin preference category availability. Let's review it a little bit so you can understand what it's saying. So the F2A category, for example, is a spouse or child of a lawful permanent resident, a spouse or child of a lawful permanent resident under the age of 21. And that C means that it's current. It means that there is actually no waiting period at this point in time, unless you're from Mexico, for people in that category. So even though it's not an immediate relative category for this month of September, and it's actually been like this for a while now for this category, there's visas available because people are not using them in the same rates as they were in the past. Unfortunately, the F2B category is for children of lawful permanent residents who are over 21 years old. So for example, in the one example that we had where we have Kunle is going to have to file, Michael, I'm sorry, is going to have to file a petition for his son who was over 18 at the time that the marriage occurred. Let's just say that he's actually 21 by the time that Michael gets his residency and starts to petition for him. So he's going to be in this category. That date indicates the priority date. When you file the application, you get a receipt, and the receipt has a priority date on it. And you just have to check the visa bulletin, once a month or, every few months to see when is my visa going to become available for that category. The longest wait time on categories is siblings of US citizens, which is the F4 category. That goes all the way to 2000 for Mexico. So I still tell people, if you have someone in these categories that you want to petition for, even though it looks hopeless, you should go ahead and at least get the application in, because we don't know when Congress is going to do big dumps where they put a lot more visas in a particular category. It happens in family-based categories, and it happens in employment categories where Congress will just suddenly just put a whole bunch of visa availability in the categories. And so even though it looks like it's gonna be really long, it's better to do it than to not do it, because at least you have it. And you can work on other options in the meantime, but it's good to just have it as an option. Okay. All right. After the visa is approved and becomes available based on preference categories, you're either going to be consular processing or adjustment of status. Consular processing just means that you're finishing your residency process outside of the country. Adjustment of status means you're finishing your residency process inside the country. There is one caveat to this. If you're in an immediate relative category and you had a lawful entry to the United States, you can do the family petition and the application for residency at the same time. The benefit of that, obviously, is that it will get approved a little bit faster. And you can also go ahead and apply for a work permit at that same time as well. There are some complications that can occur. If you did have an unlawful entry to the United States and you're currently still in the US, you're most likely going to need a 601A waiver for your unlawful entry, and you won't be able to complete the process inside the United States, apart from some exceptions, a very few exceptions for that. In order to qualify for that 601A waiver, which forgives your unlawful entry into the United States, you have to have a spouse or parent that is a US citizen or a lawful permanent resident. And this is why you see a lot of people in the US who have children who are 21 and over, but they're still not documented. And the reason why is because, yes, you have a child who can file a petition for you, and maybe they did already file a petition for you, but in order for you to complete that process to become a resident, you have to have that waiver because of an unlawful entry. And without a spouse or a parent that is a resident or a citizen, you don't qualify for that waiver. All right, and I want to go back. I didn't finish the complications. Okay. Another complication can be if you have any criminal history in the United States. You'll need to consult individually with an attorney on that, because each charge, you have to look at it the way that it was written and how it was actually disposed of in order to know whether or not it's going to cause any issues with your immigration process. If you have a prior removal order, that removal order is going to have to be rescinded in some way, either by a waiver of forgiveness or having a judge reopen the case before you're able to adjust status and become a resident. If you are currently in removal proceedings, you can adjust status. The way that you're going to adjust status is going to depend on how you were classified when you arrived in the United States. If you arrived as an arriving alien, so you entered without permission, but you were categorized as an arriving alien, then USCIS is going to adjudicate your application for adjustment. If you did not arrive as an arriving alien, then the immigration judge is going to have the authority to determine whether or not you're eligible to adjust status. You have to file the application in front of the immigration judge. That can get a little bit complicated. So of course, you'll want to have a personal consultation with an attorney to figure out the exact steps in doing that. It's also going to vary based on where you are in the US. I do serve clients all around the United States, and the process, depending on which circuit you're in, can vary very slightly, and each judge has their preferences on exactly how they handle those cases as well. All right, so now I just threw a ton of information at you, and if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself, or you can send your questions through the chat. The only thing that you want to be aware of is not to give away too much of your personal information. You can ask a generic question. If it has a lot of personal information in it, I just don't want you to have any issues with anybody else overhearing it. Also, there's no attorney-client relationship created by sharing with me in an open forum, obviously. So just be careful about sharing anything that's too personal, but you can go ahead and ask questions, please.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Ms. April, for such an insightful presentation. I want to use this opportunity to just kind of highlight the process for folks who would love to work with Ms. April's law firm. The process is we ask that you reach out to the Nigerian Center so we can do an intake process, and also assign you a paralegal to support you all through that process, and after which we'll be able to generate a referral should you choose Ms. April to be your legal representation. First question I have for you, Ms. April, is how does this process work for adoption, particularly those who are under 18 and over 18?
Okay.
Adoption by a US citizen.
Yeah, the adoption has to be finalized before the person is 16 years old, and they have to live with the person who adopted them for at least 2 years before they are able to apply for residency. Now, it's okay if the adoption occurred outside of the country. That can be the start date of the 2-year period of them living together, but the adoption does have to be finished at the age of 16.
And what about, is there any benefit for over 18 or 16 if you're older than, if you're like an adult?
To have an adult be adopted?
Yeah.
No, there's immigration wise, there is no benefit for adopting someone over 16 years old. Not directly through adoption. There is something else called special immigrant and juvenile status. So that is like taking guardianship over a minor under the age of either 18 or 21. It depends on which state you're in. For example, here in Washington, D.C. and in Virginia, it's 18, but in Maryland, it's 21. So if you take guardianship of someone who is that age or lower, then they can apply on their own for residency later on based on special immigrant juvenile status. The limitation to that is that if they become a resident through that method, they are never able for the rest of their lives to petition for one of their biological parents. So even once they become a citizen, they can't go then and petition for their biological parent because they received their residency based on special immigrant juvenile status, which means that you were abused, abandoned, or neglected by one or both of your biological parents. So you're not able to petition for them at any point in time.
My last question, and please, I want you to, audience, to kind of get your question ready for Miss April. But my last question, next question for you is, and you might have touched on this, what happens with a failed marriage that currently has an active application process in, and instead the spouse decides to, there's a failed marriage, but the process is already initiated?
Okay, so it depends on exactly which state they're in. So let's look at 3 different options. A failed marriage, and it's before the person has been awarded a green card. A failed marriage, the person has been awarded a conditional green card, and a failed marriage, and the person has been awarded a 10-year green card. Okay, so the first one, if a green card has not been issued yet, and the people separate, the marriage has failed, that application is going to be denied. There is unfortunately no way to keep that application alive. If there was abuse in the marriage, the person may then turn to either file for VAWA, which is Violence Against Women Act, or U visa if there was a police report filed. By the way, VAWA, even though it's called Violence Against Women, it does include violence against men. It also includes violence by a parent or a child who's a US citizen. So if you're being abused in your relationship, physically, emotionally, psychologically, that may be something you can turn your application into. But if you're simply relying on the marriage petition to obtain residency and the marriage failed before that green card is in hand, it will be denied. Now, if the marriage was less than 2 years old, and the person received a conditional green card and the marriage failed after that point, then it depends why the marriage failed, if they're going to be able to get permanent residency and convert from the 2-year to the 10-year. If the marriage failed because of some natural consequences that happen in a marriage, then that's fine. They just have to be able to explain that to the officer who's evaluating their application to move from a 2-year green card to a 10-year green card. If the marriage failed because the immigrant cheated on the petitioner, that's going to be problematic because at that point, unfortunately, the immigration officer might conclude that you were not in a real bona fide marriage that was for the purpose of love. I think we all know that that's not exactly why cheating occurs all the time, but that is the conclusion that they will make sometimes. So it depends on the reason why the marriage failed as to whether or not that person is going to be able to stay in the United States. And if you have a 10-year green card, nobody's going to make any inquiry. If you have a 10-year green card, it means that you were already married for at least 2 years before the petition was granted, before the person received residency. That gives you a really high standard, or it gives you a really high presumption that it was a valid marriage, and nobody's really going to make an inquiry into whether or not it was a valid marriage when you go to renew your residency again. So barring some extreme situation, the 10-year person is generally secure.
Thank you so much for that. Any questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself.
You're saying I did such a good job that you have no questions.
Oh, the questions, in addition to the excellent job you did, there are still more questions coming to the chat.
Okay, I just see something. How long, how does one file their I-130 for spouse if all visits are in their home country, but spouse has residence in another country where the embassy is moving faster? Do you put their address in the country they have resident permit? Is an explanation needed as to why the spouse has residence in the other country? Why not other country? Okay, so one thing that you're going to want to look at is the I-130 instructions are actually really thorough. So if you're filing on your own, definitely go through and read the instructions. you're going to be using the address of where the person is at the time that you file the application. That's the address that you use. However, there's another place on there where you get to select where you want the interview to be. So if you want the interview to occur at the consulate in the home country, you can. If you want it to occur in the country where they currently have residency, then you can select that country. The one thing that I will caution you about is people making judgments about which embassy is moving faster. You just take all things into consideration because that can change overnight. If your only decision-making factor is this one is moving faster right now, just keep in mind that can change overnight. Think about all the people who moved their location to Poland, and then Russia got attacked by Ukraine and all the visa applications got pushed up there. So you might want to consider, well, where does my spouse actually want to live while this is processing, as when you choosing a consulate. Okay. My daughter, who's a US citizen, filed for me August 2nd, 21, did my biometrics, my medical, RFE November. My question is, I have not been invited to send my medical, neither have been invited to interview. This is 13 months, my daughter filed for adjustment of status. In the process of waiting, I've lost 2 siblings back in Nigeria, and I have my annual medical checkups not been able to do. I'm very sorry to hear what's happening in your family. My condolences on that. So let me check very quickly. There is, the USCIS publishes a guideline for processing times. Every single one is not correct. I'm not correct, but everyone, it doesn't apply to every single case. They give us an average processing time for the applications. So if you go on their website, you actually select which form was filed. You select your category. Your category is a US citizen filing for a parent. And then you select the field office that it went to. I'm just going to select Texas here. You can go in and put the correct one if that's not the correct one. It says the estimated processing time for this is 11.5. So since you're at 13 months, you're out of processing time, and you can submit a service request asking that your application be serviced. That means they pull the file and they work on it. If that's not sufficient, you have the ability to request an ombudsman or senator intervention for your local senator or representative. And then the most extreme thing after that is actually suing the US Citizenship and Immigration Services for them to take action on your case. So you have a couple of different options that you can take to get them to pull your file and work on it. And good luck to you. Should I make a statement and evidence about him going back and forth between the countries for business? I don't want an RFE say, well, the business of marriage in the country of birth, not the country of. It seems like you're concerned about where the visits are. Nobody cares about that. You can visit. There are people who have never been to their spouse's home country because of whatever situation is going on there, and they only ever meet outside of the country. Nobody cares. They just care that you have met and that you can prove that you have a bona fide relationship. Okay, so yeah, it's fine to ask for expedited processing, but you're actually out of service time. If Texas is correct, you can put that in for your exact service center to know that it's correct. If your service center says 14 months, then you can wait a month and do a service request. But if it's Texas, that's 11.5. Okay.
Yeah, Ms. April, another question for the special juvenile option. Must the beneficiary of that petition be currently living in the United States? Can they live overseas?
Yes, because the first step in that is for a US court to grant guardianship or custody of that child to someone else. And the US court does not have jurisdiction over children outside of the United States.
Okay. Would you mind expounding on that senator petition option, just in case folks wanted to reach out to their representative to support the application process? What is the step of going through about that?
Sure. Every single senator or representative has on their website a way for their constituents to contact them. So it's either going to be by phone or by email usually. And all you have to do is prepare a statement of exactly what it is that you are concerned about and what you would like for them to do for you. And they're able to reach out to USCIS. Sometimes they are able to get an application expedited or pulled, or reviewed, or worked on. Sometimes they'll respond back to you and say, you know, sorry, this doesn't meet the standards for cases that I typically intervene in. But it's typically, I mean, if you know the politics of your representative or your senator, you could probably predict whether they're going to be willing to help you.
I see. Folks, we also have any other questions?
I'll just add one thing.
Okay.
When you do reach out to your senator or House of Representative person, if you do that, you want to try and be very concise about what you're asking for, because these are generally being screened by their staff before they're presented to the actual person. So try not to be too long-winded and wieldy. Try to be just very straightforward and to the point. So for example, my summary of the other case would be, my application has been pending for 13 months. According to their website, it should only be pending for 11.5 months before I receive approval. While I've been waiting for this approval, I've had some extreme circumstances occur to my family members and to my health. Can I get a call back for additional assistance?
Excellent. And I wanted to have a question. I just got it. It just left me. Oh yes, there's currently a significant wait time at the Nigerian embassy. I think folks say it's getting to like years before you get an interview. If you have any kind of thoughts around that or advice or ideas, does that also apply to the family-based categories?
It does.
And those who have like compelling issues, are there options for them? Maybe health or other way? I don't know if you just want to speak to how folks can respond to that.
The best thing that you can do is when you go into the consular processing part of the case and you need to upload documents for them to review, the very first time that you upload your documents, make sure everything is correct. Because a lot of the frustration that people feel in this process is that the case, they're not going to be viewed for every 45 days. So if you missed your 45-day window because one document was incorrect, you're just going to be sitting for another 45 days before they're willing to even look at it again. So when you sit down to work on that, make sure that your scans are clean and crisp and that they're uploaded in the proper image size. Each document, your tax records, everything. And if you do that the first time, then at least you go into being documentarily qualified and ready for the interview, and it'll make it a lot less, trouble for you. They do have the option to try and expedite your interview. Honestly, the system is being overwhelmed by those kinds of requests now. People reviewing those requests, it's taking time away from people actually working on getting the interviews done. So I tell people, I know it's really hard to be away from your loved one, but I tell people, unless you're facing really extreme consequences, please don't make an expedite request, because it makes it more difficult for them to get through with the cases that they need to get through. If you are genuinely experiencing something, then, go ahead and do that. But just I want people to keep that in mind. There are people out there who are, their loved ones have been diagnosed with stage 4, stage 5 cancer, and then somebody else is making an expedite request because they are psychologically harmed by not having their partner there to hold their hand. And I just, keep that in mind when you're making those kind of requests on the system. There are humans on the other end that have to do this work. We're unfortunately, we're still not out of the COVID backlog of cases that were created around that time. And it might be some time before we're out of it. So making a plan of how you're going to keep your relationship going, if it's a spousal relationship, is the best thing that you can do to wait out that time. So what things are you going to do to spend quality time together if you can't be in person with each other?
Excellent. I just want to thank you so much, Miss April, for blessing us and empowering us with this wealth of information and resources. I also want to also echo the process once again for folks who wanted to reach out to Miss April and have further consultations with her. We ask that you go to the Nigerian Center website on the immigration, and you can submit an intake request for immigration program and a very brief summary of what your case is, and then we're going to make a referral to Miss April. Miss April, we thank you so much once again. We look forward to reaching out back to you for continued support and collaboration. So if we can all give a virtual round of applause of appreciation for Miss April Holloway.
Thank you so much.
So before we go, I just wanted to, I'm going to ask, is it okay? April, your screen.
Yes,
sharing?
I just.
Please hold on, everyone. Do not go yet. I just wanted to revisit a few.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, I just want to revisit a few information that I want you to be aware of. First, I want to talk about this historical match that happens. It doesn't come to us often in Washington, D.C., that we have the Nigerian female soccer team coming to play in Washington, D.C. And I know this is going to be very difficult for some of us to choose who to support. We're truly Nigerian Americans. So now, should you want to take advantage of the tickets we're giving away, you will have to support Nigeria. We will also ask that you put on the red, the color is green. The color is green. We're going to ask that you put on a green t-shirt to be seated at this would be the Nigerian Supporters Club category of the stadium. The ticket for this is going over $150. So we have some giveaway for this tickets. If you're in Washington, D.C., if you want to travel down, the tickets were donated by our sponsor, TapTapSend. So to get the tickets, what you need to do is to download the TapTapSend app, use the promo code Nigerian Center DC. You would get $10. So you can send any amount, even if it's $1. Send us a screenshot of that, and you're going to consider you're going to enter the raffle. If you want a +1 ticket, we ask that you go to the Nigerian Center social media pages, tag a friend that you want to bring to be considered as well. That said, I also wanted to give opportunities for how to further get involved with our programs. So if you came midway this session, a recording of this session will be uploaded to our media page. On the media page, you would also find the recording of our previous workshops. So it is nigeriancenter.org/media. We are asking for volunteers all the time. If you want to be a part of our community partners, and these are community leaders who currently serve the Nigerian American community, whether it's as a faith-based leader or media or business, whatever community you represent, we conduct listening sessions to see how we can better serve the community. If you have not yet donated to the Nigerian Center, I'm asking that you please consider making a donation today, whether it is $1 or more. Please go to nigeriancenter.org/donate. If you want to be a recurring donor, all you just need to do is to click on the icon that says recurring donor. We'll greatly appreciate your donation, and it's really going to go a long way to help us to continue to provide these resources to the community. As I said, in October of 2022, just shy of over a month or 2 months from now, we are opening in Washington, D.C., a walk-in immigration clinic where you can meet with lawyers all the time, absolutely for free, whatever immigration cases that you have. This program right now, the way it's set up, is going to be catered towards DC resident and partially DMV resident. We want to serve the entire country, and want to continue to dedicate a portion of that program to the virtual intakes and consultation and partial representation. So we are asking that you donate to the program. If you would go to nigeriancenter.org/donate, you can indicate that you want to donate specifically to the immigration clinic program, or you can send us an email. So we have a immediate request. Again, do not wait till you can donate a lot of money, whether it's $5 or 10, whatever you can, is going to go a long way, and we ask that you do it today. And lastly, I want to share with you all the immigration. Let's see. I'm sending to the chat box right now the evaluation link for today's workshop. Please, if you will go to the evaluation and evaluate today's workshop, let us know how we can improve these workshops. Particularly, please let us know what topic you want us to cover next. Through this interaction, we are able to know what we should be concentrating on. That said, I want to say thank you, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. And once again, we're going to give a round of applause virtually to Mrs. April Holloway, the newest member of our Nigerian American community that we just invited and adopted into the community.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, Olayinka.